It is afternoon in UK, yeah?
Evening in the UK.
Evening in
It's
the
half past
UK.
7. Yeah.
Dima, is it an afternoon for you?
It's
It's
9:30
night.
p.m.
In
Yeah,
Israel, yeah?
almost night. Yeah.
Uh, is it all cities in Israel the same time?
Yeah, we're so small, man.
So small, yeah?
Yeah.
Sebastian, you're about 2 hours ahead of me, yeah?
Just an hour. Just an hour
Just an
ahead of you.
hour? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right now it's 11:35 in the Nevada area.
Yep.
And, well, how are you, gentlemen? How's it going?
Yeah, we're all good.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's fine.
It's good to see you guys. I know that all of you haven't met each other, but you met before we recorded already. And so now you know face to face the people that you debate with on social media. You know their facial expressions and all of that stuff. And one of these days, I hope to God that we will all be together in a certain festival, so we could all hang out and just drink beer and laugh it off. You know?
That would be great.
Yeah.
I'm praying for that.
I
With
know
some
that
rum.
Pierre and Sebastian has been to my festival, but Dima and Daniel has not yet, but soon, soon. As long as I was just going to talk to you first before we get into the subject in mind. I posted on Facebook about I am not going to restart any of my festival until a vaccine is approved. I mean, what do you think of that idea? Because a lot of people are restarting their festivals now, given that they wear masks and they do the sanitizing and all of that. I mean, what's your opinion on this, Pierre?
Um, well, I think it depends on the specific region that you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
like, for instance, I'm going to an event this weekend in Berlin, and the city of Berlin, they've got a good um, the situation is quite good there, and the event itself, they put on lots of things about like face masks and hand sanitizers and like lots of procedures in place to make sure that everyone's safe. But I feel safe going there, but I wouldn't necessarily feel safe going out dancing in the UK at the moment. So yeah, I think it depends on where you're talking about.
Uh,
But for you, I think it's fair enough.
Congo?
Um, it's funny you asked that because even when with the vaccine, are you gonna? I mean, are you only gonna allow people in that have taken the vaccine? Because there's many anti-vaxxers as well. So are you then discriminating against dancers that don't want to take the vaccine?
No, I won't because it's a choice for me whether wearing mask or our vaccine is a choice. But I want
Right.
to make sure my trend of thought here is the fear. Okay, that general fear that you'll catch something or whatever with other people that are easily not immune to certain viral diseases, and just having that in mind that a vaccine is approved, just like what we have right now for flu. We have
Right.
different kinds of vaccinations, right? Not all of them works 100%. We know that, okay? I know this for a fact because some people has taken vaccine and they still get flu, okay? And they will always have that excuse, oh, it's a different type of flu. Well, that's the same thing with this pandemic that we have, which is COVID-19. We don't know specifically what it is. To this day, we still don't know. If you don't know anything, trust me, you can't develop a vaccine, but they think they know. So maybe they know in certain areas, but just the peace of mind that you have this vaccine, just like flu. Look, I have seen so many people, dancers at festivals who are sneezing, coughing, and everything, and no problem. No problem, because it's just a flu. Okay. Well, they're just giving it a different name, and they said it's more dangerous. And given that, I believe that. But the vaccine is the most important here because if we don't have the vaccine, the fear will always be there. Yes, people will attend the festival, some of them,
Mhm.
but not all of them. Sebastian?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a personal choice. I mean, I guess I could see both ways, right? I mean, for me, it's one of those things to where even if there is a vaccine available, doesn't guarantee anything. To me, it doesn't even mean that even if it becomes available, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't wear a mask, right? It
Mm.
just means that at least to me as a promoter, you probably feel a little bit better about holding an event knowing that if somebody gets sick or if somebody's out there, then there's a little bit more help for them. But I mean, I think that I don't know. To me, both ways, I can understand why you would do it one way and the other. Either way, I don't think anyone's going to be super comfortable, or 100% of the people will be super comfortable for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's a personal decision as a promoter as to how you want to do it, right? You want to wait? Do you want to put restrictions in place? Do you want to have both? I'm just one of those people that at this point, I don't think there's any wrong or right answers. You just have to do what you think is best for you and whatever you can sleep with at night, and then hope that people take the precautions that are in place. So,
well, as a promoter, I have several reasons, and one of them is I don't want to lose money.
sure.
When you put on an event like that, it's one thing to put on an event, and if you're just doing it in the clubs or studio, that's fine. But if you're doing an event like me, where I do it at the hotels all the time, where it costs a lot of money, you want to make sure that everyone is there. You want to make sure that the people who believes in mass are there. The people who does not believe in mass are there. And so there are two sides of parties here. And Dima, what do you think?
I think that the whole industry is going to change the way that we're holding our events. I think the big events are something that I don't see happening soon. So if as a promoter, I don't see myself throwing an event with 1,000 people, So I don't know. I just know that what we had here, that people had parties and a lot of dancers got the disease. And as a promoter, I don't want it to have to be on my fault, because this is what people are going to remember. Oh, Dima organized that party where everybody got infected. So for me now, it's really hard to see. But what Pierre says that, and maybe in Europe, in some places, they know what they're doing. So,
I mean, guys, we already know flu exists. We didn't test for it. We didn't test temperature when they come into the festival. They weren't wearing a mask, and for sure that if there's flu, you're going to get it if you dance with someone,
Yeah.
And so, well, I've never gotten flu. So and I only had one vaccine in my life. That was when I was 12 years old for measles. Never had any vaccine in my life. I'm scared of them, by the way. But, but anyways, that's besides the topic. The gentlemen are allowed to question each other.
Edwin's complaining. He said it was about bachata.
I'm sorry, what?
Edwin's complaining already. He said, I thought this conversation was out. Ferreras.
Be patient, Edwin. Jesus.
I was going to give it like 30 more seconds and be like, look, I'm not a doctor and this is not what I signed up for. So let's move on.
All right, gentlemen. Why are you not playing merengue at festivals, Pierre?
I play merengue.
You play
Not a lot.
How many times?
Not a lot, but it depends, because it depends on the crowd, doesn't it?
Well, let me
In
ask you
Europe,
this.
they're not so fond of merengue.
Okay, Pierre, when you play merengue in Europe, do they dance to it?
Yeah. Not really.
That's the reason. Okay.
But the funniest thing is I actually play more merengue in salsa parties than I do in bachata parties.
Okay. Chongo, how about you? Because you do the boss.
Yeah, no, we hardly ever play a merengue in the party.
Why is that, as a DJ? Why is that, guys?
Well, it depends on the crowd. Now, sometimes we do have an influx sometimes when we get the Latinos in to help us drink the bar.
What? But there are Latinos out there who does not like merengue. Are there specific Latinos you're talking about?
No, not specific, but they are more inclined to enjoy a merengue as well, because that's what they're used to in the more Latino parties. So my business partner, Ramiro, he will drop a couple of merengues sometimes, but when he does, I'm like, Ramiro, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't play it. And he's like, wait, let them drink. Let them drink. I was like, okay.
But wait a minute. What type of merengues do you guys play? I'm talking about UK now, Pierre and Chongo. Do you play Elvis Crespo type or
all those cheesy ones, like
El Tiburon.
Yeah, El Tiburon, yeah. Like it's like proper five
Azul.
Cheddar.
Christian
Azul. Yeah, those types.
Sebastian, when you play merengue, Sebastian, when you play merengue, do they dance it? And do you play merengue?
Well, yes, I play merengue. Yes, people dance merengue. I
What
just
type
have
of
to.
merengue do you play, sir?
Well, let me just address one real quick thing. I'd like to address the fact that Daniel referred to us as when we get the Latinos, as if we're as if we're some sort of like plague entering like a festival dance party, right? Like it's all like, well, when we get the Latinos, I guess we have to play it. And I'm just
No, 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 no. To be fair, it's different in the UK, right? Because we have the Latino community, and they go to Latino parties, right?
right.
They don't necessarily come to a salsa party or a bachata
Got it.
party.
It was more.
So when they come,
I didn't mean it in a negative way. I just thought it was funny the way that he said it. Like,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. Anyway, that being said, yeah, I mean, I play mid. So I guess I should give a little context, right? I mean, I have played festivals, I have played congresses, but the majority of my background comes from playing at clubs. Right. That's the first time I ever played was at a packed Latin club, a Latino club, right, with like 500 people. It's the first time I ever DJ'd years ago. So that's the environment that I come from, and so I play everything. Now that being said, I've been watching dancers, and when I use the term dancer, I'm not necessarily talking about a festival dancer or a
Right.
social, right? I'm just talking about somebody who hears music and wants to move their body to it. When I say dancer, that's what I'm referring to, right?
Yeah.
And to me, if you took people that had no idea, that really had not been involved in the Latin scene at all, and they had no exposure to it, there are two types of music that are almost guaranteed to get them to move. And neither one of those is salsa or bachata, in my opinion. Those two are merengue and cumbia. If you play those two things and somebody has no exposure to the scene whatsoever, those two genres of music will get people to move and they don't even know what they're doing, right? They're just all
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, I like this," right? And so to me, if you hear that music and you don't want to move, I just tend to think that you have some preconceived idea as to why you don't like that music. That's just my personal opinion.
Mm. Uh, let's talk to the, look at my fingers, Israelite guy. Dima, what do you think?
Well, when I tend to agree with Pierre and Chongo because I think we share the same type of crowds, which we have like the Latino community, which is pretty big here, but from certain type, they go to their club and they're never mixed. But the parties that I throw, I always want them to be involved. And then the rule for DJs is every 3 songs there's going to be break. This is what I tell to the DJs that I hire. And obviously, every time I have a drop-in class, I always prefer to teach merengue, and then I have to put 1 or 2 songs during the party because usually I DJ at the same party. So it's like you have to let the crowd who is used to dancing and to responding to music by dancing to know how to respond to it, and then you play it. But the opinion here is very negative about
Well,
merengue.
look, as DJs, most of the time we play for the crowd, and we all agree with that. Okay, most of the
Yeah.
time, whatever flow and whatever they like dancing to. But as teachers, do you think that merengue should be required if they're bachata dancers, if they're studying
Oh,
bachata?
100%.
Explain,
100%.
Dima, why?
Because this is the most fundamental origin of bachata. And I think if you want to teach people to dance bachata, you first need to start with merengue. This is my ideology, let's say. And again, this is the way I think. I think, and the other thing that I have problem with, and I told you, Rod, that having a night, a bachata night with only one type of music is boring. It's boring as a dancer, it's boring as a teacher. So if we want to make our parties more fun for the people also, we need to introduce this genre in the way of dancing and obviously the way of music.
What do you think of this, Sebastian? As the teachers that you're close with, and as a DJ, you witness all of this even before the party.
Yeah, I mean, I think teachers play a big role in it, right? You know, I have taken merengue classes with several different teachers, and obviously I'm very close personal friends with a lot of them, but I can tell you, number one, merengue is party music, right? If you go and listen to merengue anywhere, just in the wild, right?
Yeah.
If you go out there and just listen to it, right, you're never going to see people just like somber sitting around, like, crying over a merengue. It might happen from time to time if you're drunk enough, but for the most part, it's party music, right? Makes you want to move, wants to get up and dance. And so if you're going to teach that style of music, you have to present it in that way, right? You have to present it like, all right, we're about to have a great time, we're about to have a party. I have seen people, there's all kinds of people that teach it, that do it that way. I mean, if you guys have ever taken like a merengue class from like Edwin, for example, Edwin is like drenched in sweat at the end of this merengue class, right?
He's always drenched in sweat anyway, even
Well,
if he's
that's true, but specifically after that class, because he's just so animated about it, and he's just so. And I've never seen someone walk out of that class and be all like, "Oh, I hate merengue," or "That was boring," and I don't want to do that. But if it's not presented that way, and then if you don't have a DJ, I've always wondered this, right? Why do you teach things at a festival if they're not going to hear the music when they later on to dance to it?
Agree.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like if you're going to have somebody teach it, then you should hire a DJ that knows how to play it, and again, do it at the right time. I don't want 3 hours of anything, to Dima's point. I don't want 3 straight hours of merengue or bachata or salsa or whatever it is. It just, it was, in my opinion, music wasn't intended to be consumed that way.
Right. Chongo?
I agree.
I mean, as a promoter, Chongo, and a teacher at the same time, I mean, what's your view in this?
Okay, as a teacher, look, I know I've never.
Let me interrupt you there for a moment, bro. Let me interrupt you. Could you increase your volume a little bit?
Hello?
There you go. Better.
Oh, yeah. As a teacher, I mean, I never went to a merengue class in my life.
Do you dance merengue, however?
I do, but that's using knowledge that I learned from salsa and the culture within the salsa community. That's when I learned merengue, because when the merengue came on, it was that that 2-step, and I was doing salsa turn patterns to merengue. So I have no clue about merengue dancing or how you're supposed to do it or how it is in the Dominican Republic or anything like that. But I don't believe it's 100% necessary to learn bachata, because I learned bachata like without merengue. So I would say, going back, like if you are playing merengue in the parties and you're teaching it, or vice versa, if you're going to be teaching merengue, you need to play it in the parties. And if you are playing it in the parties, you should teach it.
Yeah.
But I'm not teaching merengue, and I hardly ever play merengue either. So I don't think you need it to learn bachata necessarily, because I'm a product of not learning merengue.
Right.
So,
Pierre?
I think it's brought up sort of two interesting issues, because you've got this whole issue about culture, right? Firstly, so when you're talking about sort of Latino culture and
He did that
like
again.
Dominican
Latino culture.
Well,
well, yeah, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And Dominican culture,
Yeah.
like that merengue is part of that culture. And you go to parties, you listen to that music, you get up on the dance floor, you dance, right? But then in the dance school culture, and it is a culture. It is different from Latino culture. It's different from Dominican culture, right? The dance schools have a culture of their own, right? And in that culture, the students will only dance what they learn in class, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have regular merengue classes. In the dance school culture, merengue is like a warm up or a icebreaker or some way of getting people up to dance or that type of thing. It's never taught as a course or a progression of classes. You don't get regular merengue classes going on, for instance.
Right.
Yeah. So if people aren't learning it regularly, they're not going to get up and dance it. So that's why I think it doesn't exist as heavily in the dance school culture.
My impression is that it exists in the clubs, and if you're a DJ that I hire, you play that at my festival. There's no lesson for it as much as it should, and my impression that there's no lessons for it as much as it should, although they played at the clubs already, and there's no lesson because it's easier to dance than bachata. It's easier to dance than salsa. I mean, if you agree with that. Now,
but again,
because it's a
we
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 type of rhythm. So therefore, if you play it, they don't need a lesson. They'll just apply what they know, whether they're salseros, whether they're bachateros or whatnot. Up here,
but I think the reason why you and Dima feature merengue more is because you're trying to present that more authentic, traditional way of dancing, and that's fine because it comes as part of that culture. So if you're trying to give people the cultural experience of the dance as well as just learning the dance, then it makes sense to put in the merengue. So yeah,
I think what you're getting at is that if you treat bachata as a culture, then indeed it is understandable that merengue, bolero, and all of this other stuff should be included every now and then. But if you treat bachata as just a dance, then that kind of question, the customer will question, it's did I go to a bachata class? How come I'm learning merengue here? I mean, what do you think, Dima?
Well, I might disagree with Pierre for the reasons I teach. I teach it because I love it so much. I think I love it even more than bachata. And I feel that it is crucial for people to know that whether they're dancing bachata, salsa, or whatever, if they want to understand this Latin culture and to be part of it, they have to know it. And again, I love playing it when I'm DJing. So for me, merengue is a pure love that I want people to know. And usually when I throw a merengue class, it's packed. Always when I throw a merengue class, just I announce Dima is teaching merengue. It's the fullest. It's more full than bachata, than my bachata classes, because
Do
people want
you,
it.
Dima, do you advertise as a merengue class, or you just basically do it unannounced?
No, I announce that I'm going to teach a merengue class. The problem of teaching merengue in a club is because it's a mixed club and you have like different levels and the music is the same for everyone. So you always need to separate room because you need a different music to practice. This is like the logistical problem. I'm talking about like regular sports. When it's a festival, obviously it's easy. And every artist I bring, I tell him, you have to teach at least one lesson of merengue because it enrich your movement, it enrich your understanding of music, and it's the joy of life. I don't know how to explain it. Like I love it so much.
Sebastian?
So I just want to address something that you said earlier, Rodney, and I think this is the trap that we fall into sometimes is that and I'm not saying that there isn't truth to it, but
Yeah.
we put dances into like difficulty levels. And
Aha.
it really bothers me, not because it's not true, right?
Right.
I'm not going to sit here and argue that that they're for example, if you compare salsa to like bachata or to merengue, that obviously there are not things that are just intrinsically more difficult about that dance, right? There are some things that are almost even counterintuitive in my opinion about how you move, right? But
Yeah.
just because a dance isn't technically as difficult as far as the moves doesn't mean that it's not it's that doesn't it doesn't require skill in order to execute, in order to do it well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and so if we need to separate that almost sometimes, because what happens is, oh, merengue is 1 2 and anybody can do it. I
Yeah.
promise you, I just saw a comment about the amount of like technical skill it takes as far as like hip movement and like just really being in sync with your partner when it comes to merengue. And these are all things that you can obviously learn when you take a merengue class. But it's much more difficult than people understand to do it well and to look good when you're dancing it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just 1 2. So I think that's the first thing that we eliminate. And if we eliminate that, then we can take away some of that stigma as it just being a warm up, right? To Pierre's point about, dance school is a culture, the dancing is a culture. I agree with that. I do think that it's a culture, but I make this comment all of the time. The number one element of your culture in that dance school doesn't exist if it wasn't for the original culture, right? And so it's a little, so, so I think every once in a while you just have to remember that. And when you remember that, I don't know that I would all the way agree with saying you have to learn merengue in order to learn bachata. I don't necessarily agree with that. But I think that you have a very like warped view of the world if you love bachata and hate merengue. Like that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that you need to learn it in order to be proficient or good at bachata. I'm just saying that you literally don't have bachata without merengue. And so for you to say like, oh, I love bachata but hate that music, I just feel like I just don't understand it. It's hard for me to
Pierre?
understand.
I don't think people necessarily hate merengue. It's just that they don't want to dance it because they haven't been taught it. So they feel very. It's just like if you played a salsa, they wouldn't get up and dance salsa because they don't know it. Or if you played son, they wouldn't dance son because they don't know it. Or cha cha cha, right? It's not that they necessarily hate the dance. It's just in that dance school culture, they will only dance what they have
But in
learned.
that dance school culture is where I hear that term the most. I'll give you a perfect. I'm a good example of that, right? Like I'm a DJ, so obviously I play a lot of different genres of music. By far, my weakest dance is salsa. Like I'm just not very good at it. But you'll never once hear me say that I hate salsa. You will never once hear me not play it. As a matter of fact, there's salsa music that I love, and I could listen to it for hours upon hours. But I personally have heard people say I hate merengue, right?
Yeah, well,
People that are
I heard that too.
actually dancing there, right? And I think a lot of people have heard it. And all I'm saying is, if you feel that way, you are coming from a very warped position, in my opinion. If you love bachata,
no,
You,
Well,
you,
yeah.
you come from a
here's
very,
what I feel about this.
very dark world.
Here's what
You
I
live
feel
in a
about
dark
this.
place.
Hold on, Dima, hold on. I agree with Dima that merengue is required for you to be the best of bachata because of your hips. You have to train that hips from the get-go, and merengue would be easy to train your hips for it. There are people that dances merengue and they're just marching. There's no hips. There are people that dance bachata and they're just marching. There's no hip. For
But
me,
I
bachata is all about, hold on, Pierre. Bachata is all about hips. I don't care what you say, Dima.
I say the people who hate merengue, they live in a very dark place in their
Congo?
life.
No, just kidding. Here, you were going to say something.
But I agree that the hips in merengue, the body movement in bachata comes from merengue, 100%, right? But that's like saying that you have to learn how to dance rumba in order to dance salsa, because that's where the body movement in salsa comes from. You don't have to learn rumba to dance salsa.
Well, Pierre, if they haven't learned
Will it
rumba
help?
when they
Yes, but
dance salsa, they don't have the full range of motion of hips, as you can see.
yeah, but learning to dance rumba will help you dance salsa, definitely, 100%. But you don't have to learn rumba to dance salsa. Just like you don't have to learn merengue to dance bachata. Will it help? Yes, but is it a requirement? No.
Look, look, guys. I think. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you
I
too.
hear you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't know what happened there. I just got. Look, let's just face it. If we just take merengue as one thing, I want to expand it. Expand it now. If you add as many tools of dance, any dance, to your skills, your personal skills in your dance, it's going to help you in any other style of dance. So merengue is definitely one of them, and because it's culturally linked with Dominican bachata, then obviously it's going to help you. So merengue is one of those things. I'm all for learning as much as you can to aid your own personal dancing and developing your own dance and your own love for whatever dance you're going to dance to and whatever music you're going to dance to. So look, definitely if you learn merengue, it's going to help your bachata. But if you learn some other kind of dance like hip hop, it helps your bachata in a different way and your interpretation of the music in a different way.
So
That's
let
what
me follow up that question, Chongo. So knowing what you know now, would you then add merengue class as a requirement or as an option?
I would make it an option. I mean, like you can train your hips in a bachata class and you can train your hips in a merengue class. So yeah, I mean, perhaps if I were to rewind my whole history, maybe it would have been nice to train in merengue with the hips and have classes. Maybe it would, and it would help me later with my bachata. But I've just gone into bachata, and
Because gentlemen, because gentlemen, technically speaking, the weight distribution for beginners are very hard to learn. Okay, Very
Yeah,
hard.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you've been a teacher for a long time, the weight distribution, no matter how much you explain, it's very hard to learn for beginners. Merengue is number one way to train that distribution for layman's people who does not understand the value of weight distribution yet. I mean, Pierre, Sebastian,
Uh,
you haven't said anything yet. Sebastian,
Um,
can I just add one thing quickly?
yeah, go
Because
ahead.
if you're going to say that you have to learn merengue, then why not son and why not bolero?
yeah,
That's a good point.
that's a
That's why
great
I
point.
asked you, would
Let's
you
make them all
require it or
requirements,
would
Peter.
you make it optional? Sebastian?
Okay, there you go. See, he's on our side now. He wants them all taught before. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think we get in my opinion, whether it should be a requirement to learn bachata is less important, believe it or not, right? More than it should just be taught and appreciated, right? I actually, believe it or not, shocker, right? I actually agree with Chongo and Pierre that you don't. I think it's really hard. Number one, you can't enforce it. You can't say you must learn merengue before you dance bachata. You'll never in this world be able to enforce that. Period. Right. But what you can enforce is the teaching of the appreciation of where that comes from. And again, if you present it in the right way, let's all keep in mind, right? We're living in a world where a decade ago, everyone thought bachata was garbage anyway, right?
Sure,
Like
sure.
nobody wanted to, right? It was just presented in a way. It was made more accessible to people. People learned about the culture, right? And so once people started learning about those things, they became more interested in it. Obviously, people started dancing different styles beyond that point, and so we have the world that we live in today. There's no reason that can't happen with any other style of dance. My only point is that it's not an accident, in my opinion, that there are so many people that, again, don't just not know how to dance merengue, but they truly dislike and have a disdain for that genre of dance. And to me, that's coming from a certain indoctrination from people who, again, just aren't educated about where the music is coming from. Because there's no way somebody just wakes up and listens to that rhythm and be like, oh, I hate that. Because again, I have years that say otherwise, that when you play that rhythm, that people want to move, right? I mean, I have little nieces and nephews, and one of the best way to get them to move is to play merengue music, and they really know. And I'm talking like 2 years old, right?
Yeah.
So it is a music that makes you want to move. It is a party music, and for anyone to say, oh, that's horrible and it's garbage music, to me, it's just outlandish. So I'm not trying to make it a requirement to learn how to dance. I'm just saying that the music itself should just automatically do that by itself. Let's just give it its proper light. Let's give it its proper space, and I think merengue will take care of itself.
Let me follow up that question, Sebas, because I know you play merengue. You DJ at my festival, and we love it. Of course, we love you. We love the flow. Do you play different types of merengue? And if you do, what are the different types of merengue?
Yeah, so I play. You have like your big band merengue, which is some of my favorite merengue, like the classics from like the '80s and things like that. You have your merengue típico, which a lot more accordion, and sometimes it can be the rhythm of it is a little bit more difficult to kind of get if you've never been introduced to it at all. You have just like your mambo merengue, your omegas, your alahazas, stuff like that. So I play a little bit of everything. I just While I choose what merengue I'm playing is, again, it's just about the flow, right? So generally, if somebody was just dancing, if I just played a fairly up tempo bachata, I'm probably not going to follow that up with another up tempo merengue. I want to change the mood and the kind of the vibe of the dance floor altogether. So if I'm going to change the genre of the music, probably going to change up the pace. And there's just I don't know. It's a really hard thing for me to explain, just because I mean I'll have sets that I create beforehand, but so much of my DJing is just dependent upon what's happening right in front of me. Right. That's why for me, virtually, like, DJing is so hard for me. I've done very little of it because I that's not it's not how I work. Right. I got to see the people in front of me. But
Yeah.
the merengue, I think I play a little bit of everything, and it just depends on what the people are up for. Generally speaking, if I want to slowly introduce it to a group that maybe doesn't love merengue as much, then I'm probably not going to play like something crazy fast, or like just something that they can't really keep a beat to.
Now, Dima, following up with the answer of Sibas here, and the reason I asked is different types of merengue, because there are different types of merengue. They sound different, okay? We're
Yeah.
talking Juan Luis Guerra's merengue. We're talking Giovanni Polanco's merengue. What's the difference?
Yeah. Well, merengue has a really long history. It's maybe 150 years old. So there's so many types, and Sebastian listed all of them. So different class of people play them, and obviously there is evolution of merengue. But still, what I love that during this evolution, all of the types evolve. So you have the classical merengue that still existed and still being created, as well as typical that you have like nowadays typical bands that are creating amazing music. So this is why I think it's so necessary for people to know, because they're missing out like one of the biggest part of Latin music. Merengue, I think, is the oldest genre that's still being created today, and it's the most diverse. I will be careful with my words. I don't want to generalize, but this is what I feel. It's like very diverse and have so many different types. So this is what I do in the lessons. I present with a little bit of history of different types. And if you play, like, as you said, Giovanni Polanco next to Hector Costa or Fernando Villalona, they're going to sound different.
And even the bachateros play their own version of merengue, and sometimes it's
exactly.
Yeah.
And bachata de guitarra, this is one of the this is the catch that I want to use for bachateros. I play Romeo Santos merengue, and people ask, "Do you recognize the singer?" And then they say, "Yeah, that's Romeo Santos." Oh, so you should know that they also, this is part of like what they say over there, that bachata and merengue comes together. Like the sorrow and the happiness comes together. You have to have them both. That's what I feel to complete the part.
Okay, let's get into the different subject of this is really the issue here, gentlemen, is because we have all these kinds of styles of bachata now, the dance, okay? And the problem with the two schools is on one side, they want to call it bachata. Also, you don't see the trace of bachata. On the other side, they want to call it bachata because it is the way they dance in the Dominican Republic. It is their tradition, blah, 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 okay? The problem is just labeling, okay? Can we call bachata sensual just bachata? Can we call bachata moderna just moderna and leave bachata alone? Dima first.
Oh, that's the 1 million question.
I mean, in a sense, Pierre has somehow decoded that and said in the last episode of part 2 that, you know, I didn't want to call it traditional bachata. I was against it because it sounds old, you know, but it's like, no, you have to call it traditional bachata because it's a culture. And he has a point there, you know.
So that's complicated. You know, my opinion is very different. It really depends on what are you teaching, what are you selling, and there it get 2 points there. If you want to teach sensual and you want to call it bachata sensual, so you better teach bachata as well. And if you want to teach bachata moderna, just teach bachata first and then add on all these things. This is, I think, where the whole debate starts. Where you start to teach and how you present it, and all this talking about evolution, you know that what I think about it. All those styles didn't evolve from bachata in no point. You can ask anybody who started these styles, they will say, I didn't know bachata first, so I started doing that. So if you want to call it this way, please learn it and then teach it.
Sebastian?
Why do I always gotta follow Dima? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, look, I'm probably a lot more moderate on this topic than some people would believe. The number one thing I think that you have to consider is, number one, you're still talking about like language, right? And so language itself is a little bit, in other words, if I say, hey, I'm teaching a sensual class to somebody who has no context or background on what I'm talking about, I don't know what kind of class that person's going to expect, right? Because it's like,
It's laughing.
what exactly are you going to teach me to do,
Is
right?
Addy laughing?
So,
Yes.
right? It's like come to this class and I'll teach you Sensual, and it's like, what in the world is he talking about? So I think that we have to be careful with that, right? So I think the best way I can put it is the labels are unfortunate evil of the way that you have to classify music, or because at the end of the day, people have to know what they're doing to some extent, right? And so you almost have to put something in front of it. Unfortunately, because it's in this bucket, that's the only way to do it. So do I think, is there a better way to do it? Maybe. I haven't heard of a better way,
So,
right?
Sebas, it's unfortunate but necessary, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's unfortunate, but it's necessary. You got to figure out, because they're not the same thing. At the end of the day, I think we can all agree with that, right? If you watch somebody, in the DR dance, it's not going to be the same way as watching somebody, in the UK dance. It's just not going, for the most part, I'm generalizing, but it's just not going to look the same. So
Yeah.
you can't call it the same thing. But if you reduce it to just an adjective, then how in the world are you going to ever get anyone? And let's face it, right? We're all in this to try to get people excited about what it is that we love to do, right? So if I love traditional music or traditional dancing or Dominican dancing, whatever you want to call it, then I want people to get excited about that. If I don't put some sort of label on it to get them excited about it, just the same way they don't put some sort of label on the Central music, then no one's going to show up, right? Then we're sitting here just talking amongst ourselves and nobody else cares. And I think people barely care to begin with, so we got to be careful.
Boss Chongo.
Man, this topic, there's like a million things to say about it. So
Give me two.
let me put it this way. Go to Pierre, and I'll try and condense myself.
All right, Pierre.
Because there's so much.
There's so much. Please.
Okay, my rule has always been to keep it simple, right? So as far as I'm concerned, if you can do it, if it applies to the music, it can also apply to the dance, right? So if you can have a song like this,
Esme.
right? And we can still call it bachata,
Tongo, do you need a moment?
right? So this is 100% bachata music, right? And it has influences from other styles, other genres. It has structural changes that make it different from traditional bachata. So if you can do it in the music, you can do it in the dance, right? But by the same token, at some point it goes too far and you end up with stuff like this. Right? Bongo chata, which isn't bachata. Right?
I made a song here.
Right? Okay, so it's about understanding where the boundaries are, right? And I think at both ends of the spectrum, from the traditional perspective and from the evolution's perspective, they've set the boundaries wrong, right? So the traditional people are ignoring a whole subgenre of music, which is bachata, but they don't like, right? And the evolutionists have gone too far and said, okay, this is bachata, but it doesn't actually contain any of the elements that are needed to make it bachata, right? But the truth is somewhere in the middle. That's my perspective.
So then the one you just played by SP,
Esme, yeah.
Esme, you would call that bachata, correct?
Yeah.
And the second one you played, what would you call it? As a music?
It's bongo chata. Yeah.
Do you have to include the chata there, or why?
Well, but yeah, because it's evolved. It's not an evolution of bachata, but that style of remix evolved because of people dancing
Can we
bachata.
just call it what it is? It's someone who tried to make a bachata remix and failed.
Yeah, it is 100%. I agree.
I agree with you on that one. I am in the moderate side, just like Sebas, because being a promoter also, I have to be in the middle of all of this. But my personal feeling about it is, all of these other styles that are coming up or that came up, for me, it's an innovation. They're never an evolution, for the very reason of I can't trace any bachata. in them. Okay, I'm talking about the dance though, Pierre. Okay, now
Oh, look,
when it comes to the evolution of bachata, we had to realize, Sebas, Dima, when we dance bachata, the traditional one, the original one, practically there's no footwork really. Okay, and then more footwork are coming up. Yet they had the same structure of the dance. Therefore, we can call that bachata evolution. Okay, but I can't call bachata sensual an evolution. Although Pierre, I agree with him. It's a evolution of moderna. Okay, not the bachata original. Okay, so that I agree. You know, I mean, what do you think?
I, so again, I think when you start conflating like the music with the dance, it gets very. This is why I feel like it's just a necessary evil, right? And
Yeah,
again, I do think it's mostly somewhere in the middle, you know. Because for example, if I have talked to people who refer to moderna music as the any kind of bachata like post 80s after they electrified the guitar, right? Because that was a more modern sound at the time.
yeah,
As a matter of fact, it's how I classify my music,
yeah,
right? When I'm organizing it, right? So if I'm playing anything probably before the early 80s, to me, that's, I just kind of call it like, it's just more like classic music, right? It's bachata clásica, just
sure,
in my opinion, right?
sure.
Because it was recorded before that time. And so the sound changed, but that doesn't mean we needed a whole new like subcategory for the way that it was danced. It's just certain sounds in the music changed. And so again, it happened again, obviously, with the introduction of Aventura, and all of the different things they started doing and substituting instruments and doing all of those things. And again, it didn't change. So again, I think that you just have to understand, if you understand where it came from, and you understand that maybe you don't necessarily love it, that the original as much as you do what the current modern is, that's okay. As
Pierre,
long as you know the other one existed. That's the biggest problem, right? Is
right,
that
right.
there's a lot of times that people just don't even know that that exists.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
so if it's because of that that we have this issue. I don't necessarily know that you can be in there because again, you're missing with words and you're talking about, language and what does this mean for one person versus the next person. At
Yeah,
the end of the day, if most of the elements are there, I do agree that it's bachata. And again, it's how I learned, right? My first introduction to bachata was aventura and that genre of music. That's how I was introduced to it. The only thing is that I was lucky enough to get exposed, in my opinion, to people that have a very strong background in culture. And so I was able to then learn. I don't hate a lot of the modern music or even some of the other music that gets played in some of the more central parties. There's some music that I like, right? And I'm okay in saying that, but I just understand where it all comes from. And I feel like because I'm educated, I don't feel I don't feel bad about liking any kind of music. There's good and bad music in every genre, period.
can I?
Congo.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, let's just take it like what drives everyone's dancing? Everyone's dancing.
It makes me feel
Music.
good.
The
Well, yeah,
music.
but the music, okay.
Yeah, the
So now
music makes me feel good.
so
Yeah.
now we are in 2020, the shittest year of the world. But anyway, we're in 2020. So the music from 1980, that was 40 years ago. So like, as the music's changed, you talked about, like Sebastian was talking about Aventura, substituting instruments, giving a different vibe, putting breaks in the song, maybe R&B stuff. As the music changes, more and more people dancing to this music have learned different things from other dances, and they are becoming more equipped to interpret that change in the music. Now, I agree with Pierre, though, that bongo chata is not bachata at all. So when you see them dancing to that bongo chata, they are using skills that they've learned within bachata class, bachata sensual, but they're using more of the sensual elements because the music lacks the bachata side of it, because it's not bachata. So if for me, my kind of philosophy is always about the music. And if the music has evolved and progressed, even to the stage where it's not even bachata, you can still use your bachata skills to interpret that music. And obviously, if you've learned bachata sensual, you're going to use more of the waves and isolations to interpret the bongo chata. So that's my view on it. And with the you know, I always say this, like when Pierre played that song with that intro, when, you know, the bachata rhythms are not even being played yet, or, you know, it hasn't even dropped yet, what I call it like a drop in the song where it drops into the rhythm. You know, I've asked the question to Dima actually, and a few other people, like, what are you doing in this part of the song? But you call this song a bachata song, but there's parts of that song which isn't bachata. So you should be able to be free to express your interpretation of that bachata song with whatever skills you have.
Yeah, because there's a comment in from Michael J. Morozov, right? And he's saying that these songs are not bachata. And I've had this discussion with him before. And he's saying that a song like Te Extraño, right? He's saying that this is not bachata.
This is bachata.
That is bachata.
Exactly, right? It's not
But this
bachata.
intro is not bachata, is it?
Right.
Yeah.
But this is what people don't understand. The song doesn't have to be bachata all the way through for it to be categorized as bachata music, right? It's the main body of the song which has to be bachata. So in the verses, in the choruses, that's when it says, okay, this is a bachata song. But in the intro, in the breaks, in the bridges, that's where it gets to deviate or diversify from the bachata structure, and this is how the music has evolved. So when you get onto like songs like from SP Polanco, like Man Overboard, right, you're getting really far from it. I mean, you're getting lyrics in Spanish,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're getting all sorts of different influences coming in there, but then it drops back into bachata, right? So the main body of the music is bachata, and that's why it's classified as a bachata song.
Well,
Yeah?
you know, intro, there are no rules in doing intro in music. There is intro, there is outro.
Yeah,
In the middle of the music, there is pauses where
yeah,
it goes
Yeah.
slow. You know, that's not to say that it's not bachata just because you added that. This even in the old days, they had some type of intro also. Like let's say Luis Vargas, he would start with some type of a waltzy type of beat in one of his songs. That's an intro, but that's not a bachata. But it is bachata, you know.
Anthony Santos does it a lot on the
Yeah,
outros of
yeah,
his bachatas.
yeah,
The mambo portion of his bachatas gets so fast that it could be merengue, right?
yeah,
Like it gets
yeah,
like they're literally parts of his outros of those songs.
yeah.
So I mean, I personally don't think anyone on this panel would disagree that what we've been listening to is bachata. I think we can
Correct,
all agree on that.
Exactly.
correct.
There are extremists that feel one way or another, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, we all know when it is. I think it's those lines all the way to the extreme levels, right?
Yeah,
I'm not going to sit here and say because you have an intro to a song, it makes it not bachata, or because you have a break, it's not bachata, or because you
yeah,
have an outro, it's not bachata. I think
right.
that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
It's also why when Chongo asked that question about what do you do during the break, I just stand there and drink until the beat drops, right? Like it's because I
Well,
don't
this is
care.
what I mean. Well, this
Well,
is what I mean.
I will freaking body roll. I don't care.
You do
But this
whatever
is
you
what I
want.
mean.
I'm
You do
going with
whatever
the
you want.
beat.
You can do whatever you want, but I'm saying if everyone learns skills from all of the styles of bachata or even outside of bachata, you will you know, make your dance experience so much more tasty.
Sure, I'm just saying that's just not it's not an argument for whether a song is or is not bachata. Is my point. Is that
Yeah.
the intro, in my opinion, has nothing to do with that. It's just an intro, and do whatever you want, but that doesn't make the song any more or less bachata.
Yeah.
No. I
The,
agree. I agree with
the
that.
issue here really, gentlemen, is labeling. It doesn't matter what style it is. It doesn't matter what type of bachata music it is. And they're all similar because they have the same structure when it comes to sound, except for bongo chata. But it's just the labeling part that people are having problem with. And the reason that could be a problem, gents, is because when you look at YouTube, let's say the dance, okay? And there's bachata champions, blah, blah, blah. Rodney Aquino, bachata champion, geez. And he's doing cabaret. I'm tossing my partner like a pancake and everything, but the title is bachata champion or bachata dance. I have a problem with that because I can't see bachata there. I can't, I would call it cabaret. I'm fine with it. But to call it bachata, the beginners, the people that don't know bachata, who wants to learn bachata, they see that the first time, they think that's bachata. Now that's very unfair, don't you think?
Well, I think up until about a few weeks ago, I used to have a problem with this as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? But now I don't have a problem with it anymore, right? Because if someone who knows nothing about bachata watches a video and thinks that it's bachata, who cares,
I
right?
do.
They're
I do.
they're going to come. They're going to come to a class, if they really care, they're going to come to a class at some point and they're going to find out that it's not bachata,
And they're gonna
That's
be
right.
right?
disappointed.
So, yeah. Well, they might not be disappointed. They might be happy. I mean, you came to bachata through Sensual, right?
Yeah,
You learned Sensual
yeah,
and then you found
yeah.
traditional. So you can't say it's a bad thing
I feel I,
because
I
that's how
feel
you
I
got
feel a
there.
little bit disappointed here. I feel that somebody didn't tell me the whole story.
I was also disappointed
Well,
by that.
Yeah,
okay.
but I mean, who was your teacher? Then you can blame your teacher.
I The teacher is now hiring me to DJ in his club and to teach in his club. So
Hey, hey, hey,
I'm
hey,
not going to.
don't talk bad about Alone, man. Don't talk bad about
Alon! Oh!
Stop talking, Dima. Don't say anything else. Just leave it alone. Leave it at that.
That's my point. Like, because like people going to classes all the time. It's like in London we have salsa classes, but when someone walks into a salsa class, they don't know whether they're working into a Cuban class, an on one class, an on two class, a Cali class. All they know is they're walking into a salsa class, and
Yeah.
it's not until they've been taking lessons for a few months that they find out that these other styles also exist, and they're like, oh wow, there's these other styles that I can go and try.
I
So
kind
this
of
is exactly.
oh,
But there
but
is a there. Go ahead, Sebas.
I was going to say I kind of equate it to sports, right? And in this way, and maybe you guys watch or do not watch sports, but like I have, if you have friends of yours that have played like either very high level sports or professional sports or like coaches in sports, for example, they probably pull their hair out watching the casual fan watch like a football or like a soccer game, right? They're like, oh, that guy's an idiot. He didn't know what he was doing. Somebody who's actually trained and knows what they're talking about, they're gonna. But if they went around and addressed every single person that made a comment on a sporting event, they would go crazy, right? Like that's all I'm saying. Is I do tend to agree that I do think that what we present to people is important. I don't want to say I don't care because I do care. But I do think we can have a bigger impact by having more quality teachers and more quality DJs in the scene by actually teaching this information to people instead of worrying about how a video is labeled on YouTube. No one's ever going to be able to impact that. Nobody can ever change that. But what you can change is who you go learn from, what music you play, the people you surround yourself with. That's the important stuff, right?
Yeah,
Good
I
point,
agree.
Dima.
Yeah, so I have so much things to say. First of all, I agree with Sebastian, but my main thing is I agree with Pierre saying that as long as everybody exposed to as many things, this is a good thing, and I totally agree with that. But this is not what's happening in real life. This is always my point. Like, if you are teaching in your club, you have a proper teacher who can teach traditional or just bachata, have sensual, urban, whatever, and your students can get exposed to all of that. This is utopia. This is utopia that I totally agree that should exist, and I'm totally into that. But in reality, it starts with the teachers and DJs themselves that don't learn what they're teaching. And then it creates this vicious circle where people watch something in YouTube with million views, super sexy moves. They try to do that, and then they discover that it's not what it is. So, yeah, Chango, if you say London is utopia, I'm going to London.
Come,
Uh,
it will be a pleasure to have you here. Seriously.
Yeah, they would love you, dude. Yeah.
But the majority, look at the festivals. And I'm not talking about the US festival because they're doing something different. Look at the European festivals. When you look at the chart of DJs and teachers, how many of them are teaching traditional or whatever you want to call it versus how many sensual you're going to have there. And if we're going to talk about music, this is even worse. Like, this is the consequence of not teaching. But the music, we can talk about every song, if it's bachata or not, and that's cool. But when
Okay.
you enter like a sensual night where I DJ, I also create this vibe because I know that people want it. This is a totally different vibe from what I know what bachata vibe is.
Well,
And
that's also cultural, Dima, as far as the vibe is concerned. You know, I know that I like the vibe when I dance with the people that have commonality with, for example, traditional bachata, and you know, we have this commonality with drinking brugal and all of that stuff. We feel the vibe. Not to mention the music makes the vibe also. But they can also say the same thing as sensualist or modernist, that they also feel the vibe, but not the way we do, but the way they do. You know.
so if they don't like bachata, there's a problem in the evolution. If they evolve, they should like this and the sensual stuff and the remixes and
Yep.
this, because this is how evolution works. But the
But-
evolution didn't work like this.
But that goes the other way as well, Dima, because the traditional folks, they won't like that Esme song that I played earlier.
That's not
That's
They
true.
won't like
Yeah,
that.
they
They
That's
won't.
not true. I don't agree on that, Pierre. I don't agree. I like it. Something happened in the Zoom.
That was all
Oh,
like,
Daniel, you're sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry.
yeah, it's all like.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Take the porn off. Take the porn off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, clear your browsing history, buddy. Come on.
So Pierre, I have an example for you. I was working for the embassy, and and it's not a festival. It's just a place where you present every country. It's like a tour expo.
Yeah.
And one of the guys who was working in the Dominican embassy, I was putting the
Sorry,
music,
Dima, but
obviously.
he's still sharing the screen.
Sorry.
probably
I don't know why.
Distracting to the viewers.
My bad. I don't know what's going on here.
Hide the
I'm
porno.
so sorry. No, it's Bruce Lee.
Stop sharing.
Is it me?
I can't.
No, it says he's sharing his screen.
Okay.
Can you override him, Rodney? Can you turn him off?
How do I do that?
I don't know where my.
At the bottom of the screen, Daniel.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So somebody from the embassy asked me to play Toby Love,
Yeah.
and I was surprised.
Come
I
on,
was-
Toby Love.
Yeah,
Toby Love isn't
man.
in the same. Yeah, but Toby Love's not in the same bracket as Esme. Come on.
Esme and Polanco is two people who are very unique in what they're doing. But it's not
Yeah.
it's not 99% of the music. If you put one or two songs of them, okay, both of them together maybe have 3 albums. Maybe.
All right.
What about
All right. So
JR, Danny J,
we're done with
Vicky
this topic,
Kobachi?
gentlemen. I'm done with this topic because we're not going to go anywhere. But the thing is, here's what I think of this to solve this. The evolution part, the bachata evolution part. Yeah, you put some footwork there. Any move, any bachata that you would call evolution, there should still be a trace of the structure of bachata, the dance. That's why you call it bachata or bachata evolution. Okay. Now, if we're talking about sensual, where the roots is pretty much in the modern bachata, which is a lot of traveling, a lot of circular traveling, waves, dips, and all of that stuff. The root is moderna. I would not call that evolution of bachata. I would call it innovation of bachata, which is, to me, is acceptable. I would accept any innovations of bachata because at the end of the day, you go to a buffet restaurant, you're not gonna eat all of the food, at least not me. I have my own choice of food that I eat, okay? Some people like all, they would like to all learn it, that's a good thing. Some people just want to eat this particular part of food or particular part of style of bachata. That's okay with me. And because of that thinking, I think that we can all coexist because of that philosophy. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more agreement than people tend. I mean, debate and controversy is interesting, so people I think,
Yeah.
a lot of times like to drive that. At the end of the day, I think that there's a lot more that we probably agree on than we don't.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer, and this is just my philosophy. A good song is a good song. I don't care what I care very little about how you label something. If I love a song, I love a song, right? I love so many different genres of music. It's crazy, right? I mean, Dima can attest to this. Dima, I send Dima like banda music from like Mexico and like all kinds of stuff, right? And he knows all the different genres that I like. So, I think that you can definitely. There's a lot more agreement than people like to admit to. I also don't think that there's as much extremism as we would like to believe, right? I think, like to Pierre's comment about how, the hardcore traditionalists really don't consider a lot of those musics bachata and vice versa. I do think some of those people exist, but most of the people that truly, truly believe that, I mean, just to be frank, I don't care about that much because they
Well,
just
what do you think of this label fusion that Dakota just wrote on the comment that she thinks that all of these other styles of bachata are fusion rather than evolution?
Yeah,
Well,
I think oh, sorry, go ahead, Pierre.
I think they are fusions, but that's how you innovate. You bring something in from somewhere else. That's how you spice it up, right? But she's also saying that the bachata is evolving within DR. But this goes back to what we were saying
Yeah,
yesterday.
but
I
there's
think
still structure there. You could still see it's bachata.
yeah, but people seem to think of evolution as a linear thing,
Yeah,
but rather
that's
than
that's a good point.
yeah, because you have multiple evolutionary paths. Like you've
Right,
got the
right.
evolution which is going on in DR, but then the music and the dance also sprung off on their own branch. They went to the Americas, they went to Europe, they went all around the world. So there are different evolutionary paths for bachata, but even though they did start in the Dominican Republic. And it doesn't mean that just because they're evolving outside of DR that they're any less valid than the ones that are evolving inside DR.
How do we solve the problem of Maria? Maria has a problem. Maria has a problem of going to a festival and they're not playing all traditional songs. When I mean traditional songs, you know what I'm talking about, bachata songs. And she keeps hearing Sensual, so she gets complained. She wants to get a refund because it was advertised as a bachata festival, yet she didn't have a good time in that room because they weren't playing bachata, quote unquote. There was only one room.
Well, that's an easy answer, Rodney. You
The
just need to
boss?
hire different DJs. I don't know why we're overcomplicating this.
Or do your research before you book your ticket.
Maybe.
Yeah, because like there are plenty of events out there that could cater for traditional dancers. So
There's
go to one of those events.
there's traditional Dominican bachata festivals in itself now. So
If you're going to an event and you look at the lineup and all the teachers are sensual teachers, all the DJs are sensual DJs,
Don't go there.
why are you going to complain?
So
Yeah.
why you going?
I just think it was more about the labeling of it. If
Why are you gonna label it as bachata?
Yeah.
If everything is not bachata, why are you gonna label it? This is the problem.
But
This is
it is,
how we create division.
but it is bachata.
Yeah, but I think
No.
we can agree though, Pierre, that you should probably have the word central in there somewhere, right? If
Yeah,
you're
because they will get
And I've
refunds.
seen this.
That's it. I think again, it's a little bit like semantics, but I mean, if someone says bachata, sensual event, then I know what I'm going to get, and I probably won't go, and that's okay.
Like
But
for
if
my
I
Hawaii event, gentlemen, for my Hawaii event, it's called Dominican Expo. If you are gonna go there and you're expecting sensual songs 5 in a row, you'll be disappointed.
do you mean
Because,
sensual songs? It's bachata songs, Rodney.
huh?
but if I go to the shop and I buy a bachata CD and all it's got on
No,
there
no,
is
no, chongo. You know there are sensual songs, the bongo chata. Most of which are played.
but that's not bachata. We've already agreed that.
We just established that's not bachata. So what sensual music are you talking about? There's no sensual
I'm
music.
talking
It's
about
bachata
bongo
music.
chatas. They play it as sensual bachata.
Yeah,
They do, but they also dance sensual to bachata music.
Yeah, but in all fairness, you're promoting and running a dance event, so we're no longer talking about what you're calling the music. We're talking about what you're calling the dance, right?
Correct.
People aren't going. It's not like a listening party, right?
but,
It's not like let's all go listen to music together. It's let's all go dance together. So I do think that you have that whoever, not just you, not you specifically, but whoever's putting on the event does have a little bit of an obligation to try to label that in close to what it is as possible from
May I
a
tell a
dance
story?
perspective, because they're going to dance. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, make sure it's not that long, Dima. Go ahead.
I will try to keep it short. I have another story. I have many Dominican friends here, and they see what I'm publishing. And I was featured in an event that is called Israel Bachata Congress. And they told me, oh, Dima, we want to go. We want to go to the Israel Bachata Congress because there's going to be a lot of bachata and everything. And I had to explain them why they're not going to enjoy in a bachata congress in Israel. And the same happened with my friend Latino, who is DJ, and he tells me, Dima, I'm from Dominican Republic. I'm a DJ from Dominican Republic. I know this music perfect. Can you get me hired in this Israel Bachata Congress? And I told me, man, I cannot.
They're not gonna like you.
They don't want your music.
Well,
But
So this sums to it. This is the if we want to create a division or we're gonna be inclusive.
here's the problem. The problem here, gentlemen, is the disinformation. That's the problem here, because I end up dealing with people who will be on the front desk and it's like, Rodney, I expected this is a bachata festival. No one is playing Luis Vargas, Anthony Santos. I'm sorry, I need a refund, okay? Or even before the festival, how many rooms do you have? Is it traditional or is it modern? The two most common question, that one. Second, who's DJing? And because of the name of the DJ and the music he plays, they will either go or not.
But if you go to a salsa festival,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How do you know if you're going to a Cuban salsa festival, an on-one salsa festival?
We know. We know.
How do you know?
We know if it's an on-two crowd. We know if it's just an on-one crowd.
Because you do your research. But
Here in the United States, huh?
but like this weekend, I'm going to the Berlin Salsa Congress.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
But you guys in Europe are different. I'm sorry. You guys in
But
Europe
what
are
style
different.
what style of salsa are you going to expect at the Berlin Salsa Congress?
I don't
Pierre,
know.
don't you
Knowing
think-
Europe, maybe Cuban.
Pierre, don't you think this is what ruined salsa scene? All this division, different styles, Cuban, Cali on one, on two. This is what killed salsa.
They,
No,
they
because
still call it
what
salsa.
happens is you start off with the base style, and then you get this diversification where everyone wants their own rooms, everyone wants their own space, and then it comes back together, right? So at the moment, bachata is going through that diversification stage, and it's going to come back, yeah, because like in the sort of early 2000s, that's where all the salsa styles split in the UK. Like the Cubans went one way, the on ones went the other way, the on twos went the other way. But now we're getting to the stage where they're wanting more mixed rooms, where you can dance a bit of Cuban, a bit of on one, a bit of on two, all in one room. So I think
What's the problem of several rooms?
there's nothing wrong with it. As long as you've got enough people to support that, then you can have that type of event. If someone wants to put on an event where everything's in one room and they can hold a successful event, then that's cool. Go for it.
I mean, for example, my San Diego Bachata Expo, there's a traditional room and there's the modern room. That's it. The Hawaii is just strictly traditional. It's called Dominican Expo. So you expect bolero, merengue, bachata, and some salsa, of course. Unfortunately, you still have to do salsa there. I shouldn't say unfortunately, because I love dancing salsa also. So, you
But
know,
if you spend 500-600 quid on a weekend, right? You've got to put in your due diligence and do your research on what you're buying. Yeah? Look at who the artists are. Look at who the teachers are. Look at who the DJs are. Look at
agreed.
who's organised. Look for videos from previous events. But if you go there blind and then complain because you went there blind, then I'm sorry, but that's your fault.
Sebastian, when you play bolero songs, let's say more modernized bolero like Sinti, that very slow bolero-ish with a small intro, live intro type of thing. And when they dance sensual to it, how do you feel instead of dancing bolero to it?
I don't really feel. I just know that they're dancing a different type of dance to a different. I mean, this just happened to me. I was out a few weeks ago, and this person approached myself, some other instructors, and some other DJs, and reggaeton was playing in the club. That's what was being played, and there was a couple dancing zouk on the dance floor. It was clearly zouk. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Right. And then the guy walks up to us and says, "Hey, what are they dancing?" That was his exact question. is what are they dancing? And my response is, well, they're dancing zouk. And then he was about to walk away. I said, but to be clear, the music that's playing is reggaeton. And then he was all like, oh, okay. And it was fine. So then it just walks off, right? So I don't like.
Were they dancing zouk or were they dancing Brazilian zouk?
I don't.
Doesn't matter.
They're two completely different styles.
Okay, but Pierre,
So
let
you
me
want to
tell
talk about labeling?
Pierre,
Hold on, Pierre. Hold on.
Here's what let me tell you. Here's what they were not dancing. Reggaeton.
Yeah.
Okay? I could tell you without a shadow of a doubt. That is not what they were dancing.
And I could dance kizomba to reggaeton too.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people do that as well.
Yeah.
My
My point is, you can't complain about being specific about some labels and not others, right?
No. I'm not. That's what I'm saying. I've already been on record as saying that the labels are a necessary evil. So I'm not advocating for no labels, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a zouk expert so I can tell you the truth. All I'm saying is his question to me was, how do I feel about it? And my answer is, I don't particularly care as long as people understand what it is, that there's a difference between when people are dancing and what they're playing, right? If I play a cumbia song and you want to go do a cha-cha to it, well, that's your business. That's your prerogative until you start trying to convince everyone that I'm playing cha-cha music.
Okay.
Then I have a problem with it.
Yeah. Pierre, I want you to answer this first and then I'll go with the others. Bolero, the beat, musically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Central people love that beat?
This is what we discussed last time because
I know. I want you to set the record straight here.
Yeah, so the Bolero Basic, the difference between the Bolero Basic and the Bachata Basic is basically the absence of the tap, right? So Bolero plus the tap.
3 and 4 beat.
Yeah, right? So that in very simple terms. And when you look at the Sensual Basic, it's the same. The Sensual Basic is Bachata, but without the tap. So it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1.
I wrote this in the comments already.
Right? Did you?
So Central people feel a lot more affinity towards Bolero music, and in Central parties you hear a lot of Bolero music, and that's why, because the music relates to their style of dancing.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop you there. Then why is it that the Central people does not dance to a slow bachata song?
They do.
I do. Oh,
They do? Like what?
People love their 115
Which
BPM.
bachata song are we talking about?
Huh?
That's slow, that they dance to Central song.
Como lo noventas by
Kevin Cosmos.
Kevin Cosmos. Even
Y Que Pasó, Grupo Extra is only 120.
Okay.
yeah, December 21st by Prince Royce.
Yeah.
There's loads of them.
I think the solution here, gentlemen, is learn all the dances.
Yeah.
Yes! Yes, Rodney!
We can't agree to this. We can't agree to this. I know
That's my
that,
whole thing.
I know
That's
that
like
some
my
people,
whole thing, Rodney.
I know that some people only prefer to learn one dance, and that's okay. But my appeal to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you are a social dancer, if you want to be, not just that, if you want to be a good social dancer where you can dance with anyone, my best advice is to learn all types of dance, learn all types of style, so that once you learn all types of style, then you can appreciate all types of music, if that's the case. Now, once you learn all of this type of style, maybe, just maybe, as promoters, you'll save us money by putting just one room. Dima?
I agree with learning as much as you can. Me personally, I want to learn the dance styles that I love the music. For example, I love cumbia. I have no idea how to dance it, and I really want to dance it. I really want to learn.
Come to Denver, Dima.
Yeah, man, I'm there. With your new edition there, I'm going there.
Let me ask you this question, Dima. What influenced a person to learn a dance anyway in the first place?
In the first place, it depends. Is it women or men?
It doesn't matter. Is it inspiration? Is it an inspiration or is it a need? Here's the question: is it a need to learn to dance, or is it just because you're inspired by something or someone?
It depends. I really think it varies between men and women, because men are tending to get into social dancing for one particular reason. Most of them don't really want to become a
Well,
dancer.
what reason is that, Dima?
To find and this perfectly right. This is like this is human nature. I have nothing against it. And women are usually are more tending to go for the dance experience, but none of them, most of them don't come because of the music. And this is the best starting point, because you can teach them whatever you think is important for them.
Yeah,
None of the, yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So,
I think it varies no matter what. I think it's a very personal thing, man or woman.
Yeah.
You choose to start dancing for literally one of 1,000 reasons. You know, it was just it's. But I do agree with Dima on the fact that you're probably more likely to want to learn and be more serious to learn how to dance to music that you enjoy, right? That you really, really like. So I don't know that, I do think the more that you learn, the better off you're going to be just as an overall rounded dancer. I think that because that's not realistic from anybody from a time perspective, sometimes even from a money perspective, obviously you need to invest to learn how to do all these things. I think the next best thing is to just, when you get a chance, this is just good philosophy for life, right? Learn as much as possible and just respect as much as possible. That's it, right?
yeah,
Learn what you can as much as you can, and just be respectful when somebody is different, has a different opinion than you do. Even if that's a difficult thing to do, try to understand where they're coming from, right? It's like, why
100%.
somebody will ever love English music to just a martillo, like, bongo beat, then I don't know. But again, there's probably a reason for it, and that's fine. And that person has little to no effect on my enjoyment of other types of music.
That's not to say that we're trying to prohibit you from just preferring one. That's not to say. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, if you can, learn everything so you could social dance with everyone. Like for me, I'd like to learn everything. I'm in the middle of all of this, but yet I have one preference. I like bachata the way it was in the way it is danced in the Dominican Republic. I like Raulin Rodriguez. I like the other artists there that like Joe Veraz and Luis Vargas, and it would take a lot for me to like modern songs, except for Prince Royce and Grupo Extra and what's the other one? Romeo. So given that, Chongo, Pierre, you first. Your top 5 sensual dancers.
Dancers.
Yeah, Pierre first. Sensual dancers. You can't say yourself.
No, I'm not saying myself. Definitely not.
Just kidding.
I'm not a sensual dancer.
Well, but you are in Europe, so you observe. You hire them.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so your top 5.
Corke and Judith.
Okay.
Luis and Andrea.
Okay.
Well, they would probably go more fusion.
Pablo and Raquel.
But they're doing everything now, Pierre.
Yeah, I know.
Well, haven't you noticed?
I would say
everyone is doing everything now.
Pure Bachata Sensual. I would say Bera and Laura from Spain.
Yeah.
Pure Bachata Sensual. Kike Nahe. And one more. I would go back to Chavez and Sylvia, because I learned a hell of a lot from them both.
Where are they from?
From Cadiz, Spain.
Yeah. I've hired Luis and Andrea. The other people I haven't hired yet. I definitely want to hire Kiki and Nahir.
Kiki Nahir, Luis, Andrea, Corke and Judith.
Yeah.
Who else did I say? Bera and Laura.
Yeah.
They are all from, in my opinion, the Corke school of Bachata Sensual, and that's what I class as Bachata Sensual.
Pierre?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that list.
Okay.
I'd add Pablo and Raquel in there as well.
I would say Pablo Raquel, but they do everything now. They've they've gone back to, well, gone back, I shouldn't say that, but they're learning a lot more traditional style, and they are dancing it really well and teaching it well. So,
And of course, our good friend Bachata as well.
Yeah.
oh yeah, he is one of the most sensual.
He is 100% sensual. He
advocates.
does bolero steps. Yeah. Okay, Sebastian,
For the same question.
traditional.
I was all like, hey, as I got no, but I barely have any business answering the traditional question, much less the sensual question. I defer to the list that Pierre and Chong did. Whatever they say, I agree with that.
I can do 5 traditional ones
You're
too.
being a politician, man. Come
No,
on.
I'm not being a politician. I'm just saying I don't, and even I'll answer the traditional question, but I will say that I'm not comfortable saying that they're the best or putting a label on it, only because one, I don't feel I'm qualified to do that, and two, I think dance is a very subjective art, right? So what I consider,
Yeah, your subjective opinion.
yeah, it's just my complete.
Just an opinion, and it's like top 5. I didn't say top 20. Then we can name them all. Dima.
Well, I didn't even get to answer the question.
Well, I thought you weren't going to answer it. I thought you weren't going to. Okay, go ahead.
It's Dima? No, I will say this. What I want to do is take a chance to mention some of the most underrated artists out there that sometimes don't always get a lot of recognition. Probably the first couple that I start with is Juan and Melanie out of DC, Juan Mejia.
I love them.
They do just their body movement and the things that they show and teach to me are so, and again, they're not the only ones that do it, but I think that it is very, very underrated, and I don't think that they get hired nearly enough. I think they're amazing instructors, and I know a lot of experienced dancers that struggle in trying to perform some of the things and execute some of the things that they teach. So I think that they're right up there for me. Just from a straight, I believe there should be a lot more female representation in bachata as well. That it isn't that there are people that know how to lead and follow. Indira Castillo from Canada, to me, is to this point is like literally probably one of the best dances I've ever had in my life. It was at your festival, in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I was like floating on air, right? Like
yeah.
She made me feel like a better dancer than I actually was. I can tell you that. Right, so like I feel way better about myself than I probably
you and Albert, yeah,
than I probably should. Isolde, I think, is amazing as well.
That's another one.
Also had amazing dancers with her. And then to me, you have kind of like your core, which you can't get away from because they've done so much for the bachata world. So Dakota and Edwin, Adam, Taub, Carlos Cinta. I'm sure I'm missing people, but those people right there, I think, are some of the best that the scene has to offer right now.
Dima?
I had this question, man. I don't know if you remember, I made one time this list in my group, and we came up to 100 people that everybody.
I'm sure, yeah.
So it's very difficult. I would only mention people that are underrated. I mean, they're not so known, but for me, they're the best. So I will go to the R, obviously. So I will start with Yenny Ventura. She's one of the best dancers there is, and also a great teacher. Also, all the girls from Las Terrenas, Marieles, Elizabeth, Noeli, all those girls are amazing, amazing dancers. Afro bachateras, they are like doing an amazing job, and they're perfect. Obviously, Isolde, as Sebastian said, she's amazing. Everybody knows Weko and Joanna, and I can go along. This is there's so many, and I have one dancer that nobody talks about, and he, in my opinion, he is the top, like my top inspiration. And he has no Facebook. No, I'm the last. I'm the worst.
Carlos
his name is no Alejandro Bachata. Look for him in YouTube. I met him in person one time. He danced only in the barrios. I watched him closely. I don't have idea what he's doing, but it's perfect. He is the top dancers I've ever seen, and I'm sure there are many, many, many in Dominican Republic that we even don't know about, and they are killing it.
For me, I would say the underrated, but it's not what you think as underrated. They're very popular,
The
but
popular.
they're very underrated in this type of style, which is traditional.
Exactly.
Desiree from Daniel and Desiree, dance Dominican with her, great. Alimana, dance Dominican with her, awesome. Okay, now they're not that known, but they can dance any styles. There are traditionalists there who can't dance every style.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, if you body roll Georgette, you will die. She will kill you. So, uh, is there any other topics that we have not mentioned here, gents?
Rod, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just gonna share my screen. Based on what you were saying about everyone coming together and coexisting and stuff. Actually, I'm gonna tell you a story. Rodney, you do martial arts, right?
Yes, sir.
So you know about Bruce Lee.
Yes, sir.
Now, he took his Chinese kung fu, which was predominantly Wing Chun, right? And he went over to America, and now he started teaching non-Chinese, Wing Chun, and all the Chinese were like pissed off with him. Like, why are you teaching our art to the Guaylo, to the white people and stuff?
Yeah.
And he started training and sparring with different people from different styles, from karate, jiu-jitsu, everything. And he said this. Let me see. Can I share it? Is it working now? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He came up with this, like, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own. So now if you think about it like this, so each individual that is embarking on this bachata world to dance, learn what resonates with you first. Obviously, what's most popular for you, what's resonating with you first, but then absorb what is useful from everything that is out there for you, and the things that don't click with you, discard it because you don't like it or you don't find it useful. And then from all of that, you add your own either sabor or your own stuff from other dance to make yourself in the dance.
To be a versatile dancer, that's what you're saying.
Yes. So like what Bruce was doing with his martial arts, he was trying to take things, a lot of the Chinese martial arts styles were all flowery, which you could probably, and like half of the stuff isn't really applicable in a real fight, right? So you could probably parallel that with Bachata Sensual, maybe. Okay.
By the way, Chango, you know that Michael wrote something interesting, that he was a cha-cha-cha champion of Hong Kong.
Yeah, he is a cha-cha champion. He was. I knew that.
No, he picked his style. He picked his style, man. He picked his style.
But here's one good point, what you're saying about Bruce Lee, to be more accurate in the story. The Chinese community didn't like him to teach to non-Chinese because at that time, in the 1930s to 40s, Chinese were being persecuted by white people, okay? And so they didn't want to do that secret of fighting because, they don't want them to know the secret. They had to have an advantage. So, but he resisted, and so therefore they hired a monk, a Shaolin master called Wong Jack Man, to fight to Bruce Lee to prove, so that if Bruce Lee wins, he's allowed to teach Chinese. But here's the problem with that, gentlemen. The point is, he was planning to win that fight. Okay, it's controversial whether he won that fight or not, by the way. He wasn't able to finish him the way he wanted it. He wanted it quick. He got so tired. After that, that's when he embraced old styles and learned old styles, because it didn't work in the actual fight with the Wing Chun original, because he only preferred one style.
Exactly.
But, so in the same way, in social dancing here, is that if you know only one style, for example, if they ask you, would you like to dance? It's like, okay, well, I don't know how to dance sensual.
Exactly.
Do you see the point of that story?
Rodney, what I'm hearing is, are you saying that me and Chongo have to fight?
Yeah. Sensual style.
So, but one other thing I just want to add, and this is one thing where obviously there's some parallels And I think anytime we share like anecdotal stories, I think it can be very powerful. But one thing to remember is in that story that was just shared, it was someone taking his own culture and sharing it with the world.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be a little bit careful. You just got to be very mindful and very respectful. And I do this myself because it's not mine, right? I think something that's not said often enough is that there's no one currently on this panel that's actually even from that culture, right? And so you always have to approach it. I approach it differently than if I was taking my own culture and sharing it with the world, right?
Yeah.
If I were to take the Mexican culture and the different things that I grew up with and learned and shared that with the world, then I'm probably a little bit more arrogant, a little bit more confident, right? When I'm doing those things. When I'm sharing someone else's culture, I just have to be very respectful, very mindful, and understand that I'm sharing something that I'm lucky enough to enjoy.
That is not mine.
It's not
It's
mine.
not mine.
Not
Yeah,
mine.
look, I mean, Bruce was very proud of the Chinese kung fu. That's why he was trying to show it off, and say, look, we are not the weak men of the yellow weak men of the East, or whatever they called it. The Americans called them. So he was very proud of that. But until he found out that his Wing Chun didn't
It didn't
beat
work
everyone,
in an actual fight.
it didn't work. So then he started taking boxing, all like the Western styles of fighting, and he's incorporated it and taken their culture, mixed it with his culture, and made his own style. So like,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with making your own style. I just think, like I said, it's very, because I think we have a responsibility, because a lot of people, hear the things that people say, and a lot of times they take that as kind of a calling card to go do these kind of crazy things, right? And all I'm saying is, while I understand that he embraced a whole bunch of different styles of fighting, obviously he had his reasons for doing that.
It didn't work.
He started from a place of sharing his own culture. That's where he came from, and that's why he was so passionate about it. And that if you're not in that exact same position, my only advice would be is tread with a little more humility. That's my only advice.
oh yeah, of
Is
course.
that tread with humility when you're trying to share a culture that's not yours. And
Yeah.
the only
Mhm.
I'm even confident enough to speak about it is because I am close to so many who I've been lucky enough that they've given those pieces of the culture to me and shared them with me. And I know that they're not here to speak for themselves right now. So I just always want to make sure that without that itself, it was unseen filter the other day. That's actually what got me really fired up, right? And I know he didn't mean to say it that way, but when Biscuit just said, "Hey, they're just dancing in the dirt," like if you could have seen my face on the other side of the phone,
Yep.
I was really fired up, because I'm like, I mean, I'll try not to cuss, but I just like, are you kidding me? They're just dancing in the dirt. Like without that, none of this exists.
Yeah.
Right? It just
Of
doesn't.
course,
Now,
of
I'm not
course.
saying that everyone should aspire to look exactly like those people dancing in the dirt, but you do have to remember that is why we have the luxury of playing the music that we play, to enjoy the dances that we dance, to have all the friendships that we've made. All of these things that we have are because it came from people dancing in the dirt. And the number one thing that I think about so much of this dancing that gets forgotten is that most of this music comes from struggle and from hardship and from poverty, and people out there forget that so much of the time. And I think it's important to kind of humble yourself a little bit, to say, like, this is so much bigger than just what I think about what a label should be, or whether we should have split rooms, or whatever the case may be. So I just think it's so important to remember.
Pierre?
Yeah, so I 100% agree that all the teachers should learn the history, the culture, about the music and the dance, right? But the problem that I found was that as a teacher who wanted to learn about bachata in the early 2000s, so from like 2004, even up till about 2014, 2015, the information wasn't available, right? That there was nowhere where I could go to look for resources on what the structure of bachata music was, what the structure of the dance was, apart from one CD by Carlos Sinta, right? That CD was the only reference point that I could find, right? There were books, but they were mainly on the culture rather than the technicalities. Yeah, and all of technical information that I could find only related to traditional or Dominican bachata, and it specifically excluded anything that was not Dominican, right? So when you were talking about structure of the music, sort of like Aventura onwards, right? There is no frame. There is no frame of reference for any of that. There is no frame of reference for the dances of that came after that either, right? So I think that the traditional teachers need to embrace the more modern music and dance and help to bring the culture to that section of bachata, right? Because at the moment they're very standoffish about it. They're saying, "Oh, we enjoy traditional bachata, we enjoy Dominican bachata, so that's where we're going to focus our teaching, we're going to focus our attention, we're going to focus everything on that, and we're going to promote that." And that's great. But then, what do the people who want to dance and learn and teach the modern stuff? Where do they go to find their resources?
Dima?
Yeah, and so I think
I
that's.
have
Oh, go
I
ahead.
have
David.
a simple answer for that. First of all, I agree with Pierre that doing demos and promoting music only from the 90s is doing a bad reputation for us as teachers, because people will have hard time to relate to that, and I agree with that. But there's a lot of modern music created on the island and off the island that is bachata that we can present and show. Um, that is true. And if you're looking for resources, that's very easy to find now. I agree that before that, I started on 2012, and I agree it was very difficult to find any resource for me, especially living on the other side of the world. And I think still that Carlos Sinta DVD is the best thing that I had. But now we have no excuses. We have no excuses. The finger shouldn't be pointed to traditional teachers. It should be pointed to all people, to every one of 10,000 couples that are now teaching bachata, to them doing their research. And they shouldn't care on what music we're teaching and what structure we're teaching. We're teaching bachata, and this is what we're selling. So do a favor to yourself and go learn it. It will not take
Yeah,
anything from your ego, you know?
but for example, when we talk about the whole remix debate,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so there. I mean, I basically outed myself as a spokesperson for how to create bachata
Yeah.
remixes, right? And I was explaining to people about the structure of the music and how you relate it to the more modern style of music.
Okay.
And I couldn't get any backup from the traditional community. Every time I went to the traditional community, they said, "This is not
No,
bachata."
It
well,
depends to who you go, man. If you
They,
go to dancers,
but
you're going the wrong way. Don't go.
nowadays, yeah, right. I can get backup from the
Yeah,
traditional
man.
community, but from that period, not
I
I
think
couldn't
so.
get it.
And Pierre, I hear what you're saying. I think like everything else, though, I think historical context is important, right? And so here's what I mean by that. I think Rodney brought this up when he was talking about the Bruce Lee thing, right? He said that that he had there was a lot of people who were upset with him because he was sharing the culture of what they thought was kind of their only. They didn't have much, right? They felt like this is our secret. We're currently facing a lot of oppression just as a Chinese people, and so that's why they felt that way. They were very protective of it, and I know exactly what you're talking about because I was part a lot of those conversations during the time when you were making those cases, and a lot of things can be said about you, Pierre. The one thing that will never be said is that you're not good at making points, right? I think you're very good at trying to make a point. I think if there's anybody that's good at that, it's you. But what you have to understand is that if people are questioning the agenda about why you make that point, sometimes you may get less support. And at that time, I really feel like, and it wasn't that long ago. I'm talking about really just 2, 3, 4, even 5 years ago. The scene has changed now. I would venture to say that if you made some of those same arguments today, you would get more support, even from people you didn't get support from back then, because things have changed and they understand like, okay, Pierre isn't as horrible as we thought he was, and maybe there's a part of him, right? And so I just think it's all about at that moment during those times. If we're contextualizing it, many people saw you as an enemy as to what we were trying to accomplish.
Right.
Rightly or wrongly, right? I'm not sitting here saying that.
You're saying I'm the Bruce Lee of
Do
bachata, right?
what?
You're saying I'm the Bruce Lee of
No,
bachata.
No,
that's
it's a
really
social
fucking
media
clear.
thing. It's
That
on
is not what I said.
the discussion and the
Pierre,
argument was
Pierre
on
knows he
text.
comes across wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even think he comes across wrong. I think he knows exactly how he comes across. The issue is that if you are in a debate with someone else who can kind of handle their own as well, they don't ever take anything at face value, right? Pierre, most of the time, and again, I'm not saying this in a bad way, Pierre is driving at a point to move on to his next one. And so if you are in a debate with him, you have to be aware of that, right? And so sometimes you cannot just simply take his point in a bubble or on an island because you know where it's going, right? And at that time, it was a very kind of it was very heated in the scene, which I do agree with him to an extent where I think it's coming, it's coming back to where people are kind of leveling out and they're saying, okay, this makes sense, that makes sense, and you're getting more people on the same page. And it was almost kind of a necessary evil to go through that. But I saw another comment as well, is that the back when he was first learning, there wasn't a lot available. There's so much more available today, right? And so I think that while that was true then, we have to, as much as possible, just like we need to bring along people to some of the more modern music, we also need to get rid of some of the old excuses that are no longer valid, right? And that just the information is now available. There are people you can reach out to. You can hire people to come in and spread this information to your entire event if you want to, right? And same way, vice versa, right? We can bring people in now that can teach us a lot more about like the modern structure of things. I think having more modern musicians around would actually be very beneficial to a lot of festivals, because what you'll find is that, because I know a lot of musicians as well that play part a lot of these groups, is there's not that much differences between them, right? The group that plays with Romeo Santos when he tours is some of the same musicians that play with the traditional artists in the DR, right? Your bass player, your bongo player, your huira player, a lot of those people are the same guys.
Yeah.
And so if you talk more to them and get information from them, you will see how much commonality the different types of music actually have, instead of creating all the division.
I agree with that. Chongo, any parting words? We're in the last part. We've talked for 2 hours. That's
parting
America,
words.
Oh wow.
I'm wow. Yeah, that went quick. I'm not going to claim to be perfect or anything like that, but I am one person that came into bachata with the Romeo Santos music, and even Monchi and Alexandra. I was dancing modern bachata. I then went to train in Cadiz in Spain, Bachata Sensual. And with the Dominican, my main teacher was Julian Marmaleo. And from there, I went back to like learn and expose a bit more about the more traditional music and Dominican music. And I feel like, well, based on my own philosophy of trying to learn everything, that's what I live by. And I think, as Rodney, you were saying, and going back to the Bruce Lee thing, is I try and live by what Bruce Lee has said. Like I find him very, very philosophical and in that way. And as the music changes, I will dance with what knowledge I have in dance to that particular song at that particular time. So you play me a Joe Veras or Kiko Rodriguez, Raulin, whatever, I'm going to draw on my knowledge of traditional style. If you play a modern song that has, very clear phrases in the music, I'm going to probably dance more moderna, top it off with some sensual, and perhaps in the mambo section or the mambo section, where the requinto's going crazy or whatever, it gives me more energy. I'm probably going to interpret that mostly with more of the traditional style that I know. So I think there's a place for all of bachata, and the way the music is, I think you can really enrich your dance with knowledge of all of them. And I would hope more of the traditional style. I get it because it's like taking a culture and change and it looks completely alien to your culture, just like what Bruce Lee did with Chinese martial arts, and then he started mixing it with other styles from other countries. I get it, but just when you look at how more open-minded Bruce was when he saw that his one style wasn't effective, maybe Dominicans could be a little bit more open-minded eventually to see that, okay, I can take some of whatever they're doing, they call sensual, whatever, but I can add that to my own personal dancing and enriching my experience of what bachata is. And I love bachata that much. So,
well, I personally have met a few Dominican friends that are open to this variety of styles, if you say it that way, and they don't have any problem with them. Some are draconians, they're really traditionalists, and some are just really open to the modernization of certain dance, and to recognize you and applaud your growth in dancing, Chongo. Your style has changed. It has more Dominican roots to it now than ever. I mean, me and Dima were talking about that the other day, you know. So there you go, you know.
But look, it all depends on the music, Rodney.
That's true.
You put a bongo chara, I'm waving the hell out of it. You know what I mean?
Dima?
Well, I just want to relate to what Sebastian said, that I really agree. The question is who need to learn from who, and who need to be more open when we're talking about something that is very, very specific. Bachata is not a Russian word, it's not a Chinese word, it's a Dominican word. And I think that we need to be more open to understand that it's not our culture and that we want to embrace it and to learn from this. And I want to say one thing about what Pierre said, and it's very important to me to say it. He has some perception that we teach Dominican because we think this is the tradition, this is the culture, this is the right thing because of some point of history. But it is not true. When people come to dance, they don't care about history of any other nation. I think Dominican style live through those phases of adapting to everyone. So everyone can dance it, whether they are kids, whether they are old people. All this, and this is something that I think, and I hope nobody will get offended. Sensual is not adopted to all the ages. I cannot teach people who are above 50 all these body waves and body isolations. It didn't live this period of evolution. So it is created to a specific kind of age or something like this. While bachata is for everybody. And this is my point. I teach it because of this. I don't teach it because I think Dominicans should be represented, which I also think. But I think this language is something that we all can get benefit from.
In line along with what you guys are all saying, first and foremost, I prefer the traditional style because I feel it, especially the music, especially certain music that are classic music. I feel it when Sebastian plays it, when Carlos Cinta plays it, or Ron Swarson plays it. I feel like I'm home, although I'm not Dominican, you see. And second, I teach it because as a person who prefers that style, as a person who respects the Dominican culture, I feel like that I can promote it, that I could promote that dance, that I could promote that culture. Because when I teach bachata and merengue, I am in a sense promoting the culture, promoting Dominican. That is not to say that I can't dance any other styles. Don't get me wrong. As a teacher, as a social dancer, I feel the need to learn all of those styles so that I could dance with everyone. But at the end of the day, I have one preference of dance and preference of music, and that's traditional bachata. Respect to the other styles. Yeah, Pierre, I didn't feel like you put your last words there.
Uh, uh, no, uh, I agree with Chongo. I think that we need to. Well, you don't need to, but I would prefer it if people would be more open to learning the different styles. Because, like me, I don't say that I prefer one style of bachata over another. I say I like bachata. And that could be anything from, like, Raulin up to Esme. Yeah? So it doesn't matter what bachata event I go to, I know that I'm going to have fun.
Yeah.
I know that I can dance there. I know that I can teach there. I know that I can DJ there. It doesn't matter what section of bachata crowd you give me. I know that I can function in that environment.
Mm.
But there are teachers that I know that only dance sensual, that only dance traditional. And when I'm DJing, I can play 100% bachata, right? I'm not talking about remixes. I'm talking about 100% bachata, and they will say that they didn't feel that they were represented in that night. Yeah? Because it wasn't sensual enough for them, or it wasn't traditional enough for them, even though I played 100% bachata.
I can
We,
vouch
we,
for your
we all
set,
have that problems as a DJ.
Yeah.
but I can say about Pierre's set that I enjoyed them the most. I couldn't leave the room. I was once in his, and he really plays everything. And he does the variety. For me, this is how a bachata set
Thank you, Dima.
No, no, no. All of this, guys, I heard Chongo also played. I haven't heard Dima yet because I haven't met him in person.
Mhm.
But soon, as soon as this pandemic is over. But gentlemen, it's great discussion. I didn't even know it's 2 hours. It seems like 15 minutes. But but all of you made great points, and at the end of the day, we're not going to get into an agreement with all of this because, again, we have our own preferences. But at the end of the day, we still get along, don't we?
100%.
Well, I mean, this is the first time I've even met two of the people on
Yeah,
the panel.
yeah.
So I mean, I've definitely had rockier starts to relationships.
When I interviewed Dima, I mean, he shared his passion. When I interviewed Pierre, he also shared his logical passion about all of this other dance. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't watched part one, part two, I encourage you to watch it. It's over 1,000 views on both of them. I am predicting that this one is even gonna be better on views on YouTube. As you know, we get views on YouTube and we get views on live Facebook. I don't do live all the time because I don't like it. But I only do live when there are certain issues like this where people could comment on it and share their ideas or even questions. But for that matter, gentlemen, I hope that soon we can be in one festival, maybe my festival, who never know, and we can all hang out and just have a good time. Thank
Thank
you,
you, man.
Pierre,
Thank you.
Sabas, Dima, Chongo. It's been great.
Thank you,
I will
gentlemen.
see you all soon.
Thank
Ciao.
you. Ciao.
Bye.